Hello and welcome to the White Dog Garage YouTube channel. My name is Bob and this video is going to be about fault finding and fixing a problem in a starter motor off a motorbike. The label is missing, but I'm pretty sure it's a Nippon Denso brand starter motor. It's out of a GSX or GS 1100 750. I've done a few of these. Before I even thought about doing this video, I'd already cleaned it. The problem with the bike was that you could push the button, you could hear the relay click, and nothing happened. I pulled the starter motor out. They sit in the engine, held on by 2 bolts here, and I brought it back to the workshop, and I'm about to dismantle it and find out what the problem is. So join me. The tools we need for this job: screwdriver, small screwdriver. We need a means of measuring. I've just got a cheap set of calipers here. You could get away with a ruler, and a pocket digital tester. Basic starter motor, used in a lot of bikes. There are 2 screws there and there that you need to undo. Cover on the front pulls off. You might or might not get the armature with it. Might be a little tight. There is a bearing there. As I say, I've already had this apart and cleaned it up before I thought to make the video. At the back you have the brush assembly, and it pays to take it off at this stage. There is one of the brushes attaches here where the positive lead goes from the relay, and you need to undo that. It's just held on by a 10mm nut. You can push this down. As always, you should make a note of where everything goes. There's 2 components which are for insulation. The end of the armature goes into a blind bearing here, so a bush. Again, should come out relatively easy. And there's a plate here which has the brushes, and it will come off, but you have in here 4 magnets, and they tend to latch onto everything. Now the other thing you need to look for is there will be 1 or 2 thrush washers at the end of the armature. Sometimes they're a wave washer, sometimes they're just flat. Pull those off and just pull the armature forward like that. Okay, first thing we need to do is we need to measure the brushes. I've done a few of these, so I get a fair idea what's wrong with this one, and I can look here just above 8mm. Service limit for these brushes is 9mm. So that is the likely problem. And for the second one, it's not too bad. It's there at just over 9mm. The next thing we want to do is check whether there's any connection between ground and the commutator segments. These are the commutator segments here. So put the earth lead, black lead, on the core, and we've got the red lead ready to go on each segment. I've mounted it upright in just a thing with a hole in it, just so that it's easier testing and you can see. I've got my multimeter set up. I've set it on 200 kilo ohms, and I'll go around and progressively check each segment. So first one, nothing. Second one, third, fourth. Okay, so I've been around them all. There is no leakage to ground. What I'm going to do now is just test whether there's an open circuit between commutator segments. So how I'll do that is I'll put the black lead on one segment and go to the next one. As you can see, the multimeter moves. We have a circuit there, circuit on the next one, circuit on the next one, circuit on the next one. Good enough, I think. Turn our multimeter off, preserve the battery, put it over there out of the way. We will need to clean up the burn marks here. The other area of interest is the depth here to the mica. Now it's meant to be 0.2, and I'm not measuring this. I do a bit of measuring all the time. It's a perceptible distance, and I'm looking at the end of my screwdriver. This is my measuring tool at the moment, and we're pretty well there, apart from the carbon dust that's sitting in them. It's all looking pretty good. So next thing is to clean up this area here, and we'll put it back together. So we know that the armature is okay. We know that the brushes are at or beyond their service limit. So the answer is pretty simple. At this stage anyhow, we'll replace the brushes. The original brushes are basically spot welded on, so we're not going to do that. We will solder them on. Okay, if you buy direct from Suzuki replacement brushes, I think you get these two components. It's quite expensive, but I suppose you're getting it all, and it's an easy job just to put it in. For considerably less money, probably a good 10 times less, 10. You can buy these two brushes on eBay, and yeah, fit them yourself. What I'll do is just nip it off. So, and similarly, I'll do that one as well. I'll start with this one, and I'll put it in the vise, done up loosely, just to hold it. First thing I want to do is just tin the area with solder. And the next thing I want to do is just do the wires. This is an 80 amp soldering iron. 80 watt. And it'd be a welder if it was 80 amps. But what it means is that it's pretty quick to solder up a joint. It's pretty quick. Always gets pretty hot pretty quickly. So, we're back from soldering, time to put it back together. I find the best way to do this, mainly because it gives you a bit of purchase for the armature, is to slot this in. I'm not quite sure where that goes. I never quite know till I put it in. One of the problems with the armature, of course, is that it wants to attach itself to the magnets. So probably in retrospect, the better way to do it would be to just put the armature in and then put the end on. Okay. I've put this one in as well, so I've inserted this one. I also cut the insulation off there because the solder had gone a bit too far up the wire and I needed to loosen it up a little bit. It only goes in one way. There's a slot there for the wire to move along, so it can only go in like that. Okay, we carefully put them, spread them both. It's easier said than done. And we need to align it. So you've got these little depressions here. This one here is actually close to the top, and this groove here, slot, has to align with that one. So I'm going to turn it around. So we've got this one here. There are others in there as well, and they're actually for resting on. If you look on the side, they're down here, and this one's actually up there. So it's actually the alignment one. So move it around, and when we get to that one, it should all press down. The brushes of course are new, so everything's a bit hard to do. Not too much, just enough to make the wheel go round. It's a starter motor, not a alternator. It should just work a little and then stop and rest. So we've got our two thrust washers on. The other thing we need to put on is this insulator. Because remember, this is the earth side and this is the positive side. So insulation's got to be good on the positive side. Push the bolt through. And there's a little opening there as well. And that goes in more or less the same spot. It's all a bit springy at the moment. Now we turn that up. Now, what you need to look is the orientation of these screws. And drop that in there. So it's got a screw point there and screw point there. This has to align with that because the screws go all the way through. All I've got to do now is rustle up a battery and see if it works. I've rustled up a battery. This is it here. Set it up with two cables. One's the earth, one's the positive. I'm running the earth over here to a bolt that I've just put into one of the mounting areas of the starter motor. And I've got the positive connected to the battery terminal. I've got a sleeve over the end of the positive lead, and that's because it's live, and if I touch it to something, it's probably going to arc out. So that's the end of the lead there. Put the sleeve over it so that it doesn't touch anything. I'm going to touch it here, which is the positive terminal of the starter motor, and we'll see if it works. There we go, it works. All good. Now, probably just highlight a couple of things here. Put the safety glasses on, it always sparks. I've run the lead from the battery across to the starter motor, and I've touched it on the starter motor. I don't touch it on the battery. The reason I don't touch it on the battery is that there could be a bit of hydrogen gas coming off the battery. Probably not. I've never had one pop on me, but it can happen. And if you got the spark at the battery, that's when you're likely to have a small fire. Whereas if the spark's here at the starter motor, it's no worries at all, we can live with it. So, there we go. So, thank you once again for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I'd love a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, think about subscribing, and if you do, don't forget to ding the bell so that you're reminded every time a new video comes out. If you don't want to subscribe, that's fine, but about every 2 weeks I put out a new video, so feel free to check back every fortnight to see what I've put up. Thank you very much again.